us on the latest decision. And the conservative response to the likely policies is Erin Elmore. She's a contributor at Turning Point USA and the executive director of USA Strong. So, Erin, before we get to Joe Biden and these recent cabinet nominees, I first want to get your response to the Trump team's legal fight. We've been following up with you over the past couple of weeks, getting your input on that. How would you say that the Trump team is currently handling that legal fight?
Well, the optics on the Sidney Powell situation certainly aren't optimal, and Rudy Giuliani has also had some press conferences not optimal. Having said that, we're dealing with three things here. We've got the legal system, the court of public opinion, and the news media. And right now, I think all of them really want to see a smoking gun. You know, I know there's lawyers in each state that are taking affidavits of voter fraud, and those are very, very, very important. And they shouldn't exist at all. We should have a legal system and a court system that everyone is comfortable with. But as of right now, I think that we're lacking that smoking gun to get us to the next level, honestly.
I think you're right. And I think that, for example, maybe we'll see it when there's more court filings over the coming days. Jay Sekulow said that there's going to be a shocking complaint filed within the next couple of days. So maybe everybody should wait for that. But when it comes to actually the arguments that are being made in the courtroom, you're exactly right. It's more so things about signatures, about making sure that deadlines are enforced, constitutional issues to make sure that the rules aren't changing in order to fit one party's narrative. Because I think that's really what's happening in states like Pennsylvania and Michigan as well. But now we look ahead to what the Biden team is doing as well. And they're moving forward with their transition, regardless of what the Trump campaign is doing right now. The nominations of Tony Blinken as Secretary of State, Ron Klain, for example, last week of Chief of Staff. What is taking shape before your eyes? What do you think a possible Biden administration would look like moving forward?
I think so far we see swampy and virtue signaling. There was talk today of Janet Yellen. We already know John Kerry.
Right.
These are not new and exciting names. Moreover, the other issues we see are woman, transgender, Latino, immigrant. Although these things are all part of the conversation and great things to discuss, they are not necessarily resume qualifiers. I think it's about the most qualified person, and these chasms that we create actually create larger divides. These aren't bringing people together. This isn't bringing together who are the most experienced and the best at what they do. It's choosing people based upon X, Y, and Z. And the virtue signaling that the Democrats are so fond of really doesn't advance any cause whatsoever. And the swampiness, Obama's back, baby. That's all I have to say.
And, you know, I remember during the campaign when people were saying, what could this possibly look like? Names like Susan Rice were thrown out there. I mean, the typical players that we've been talking about that for the past 4 years about how they were essentially rejected by the American electorate in 2016 are now once again resurfacing. And there's arguments to be made about that. But I see those on the right criticizing the decision, but also those on the left as well. They want, of course, Elizabeth Warren in there, Bernie Sanders at Labor, Elizabeth Warren at Treasury, things that just don't seem to be likely acknowledging who's at the head of that. So what do you think the next 4 years, if Biden were to win the White House, would look like? Would it be tensions coming from the left as well as on the right?
I think the left is going to eat their own. Like you said, I think Bernie Sanders was appointed to director of the Gulag. But no, honestly, in all seriousness, he has already said that the progressives are being ignored, and it certainly does look that way. But I think they realized that the pendulum had swung pretty far to the left, and he's trying to bring it back to the center. But they should be focusing on the midterms, because if they just go back to the Biden era rejections, they're going to see shakeups in the midterms.
And that's what we saw in 2016. A lot of people saying, you know what, these neoliberal policies aren't necessarily working for me. I know what has happened so far. They saw that anemic growth coming out of the 2008 recession. And once again, I mean, there's concerns about how Biden would handle this upcoming economy. We're going to play some clips from Tony Blinken, what he said in the past when it comes to taking on China. People already have their concerns about Joe Biden and his unwillingness to take on China for the past 40 years, for example. But a big part of this will be if the media holds them accountable. Are you not very optimistic on that front?
Right? The obituary, because journalism is dead. I'm wearing black. But seriously, I mean, journalism as we know it has been destroyed. We saw it on election night when Arizona was called prematurely. Everyone basically just wants to say, now let's usher this guy in. Come on, run along now. Let's just get this process over with. Biden's feet are never held to the fire. We saw it with the debates. We saw it with his town halls. We saw it with the forums. They just asked him what kind of ice cream or a milkshake he likes, and the president is being asked basically calculus problems. I'm being tongue-in-cheek, but the matter is still the same. Mainstream media has basically just taken over for Biden. Even the New York Post, which generally tended to be more right-leaning, talked about all of his cabinet picks today. I don't remember if the word was revolutionary, but insert your favorite word there. It was something like exciting or revolutionary new picks. I don't see much that is exciting, revolutionary, groundbreaking, innovative at all. And now the mainstream media is saying he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. They're calling his daughter the next Ivanka Trump. That's a conversation for another day. It's just like they want to erase the memory of Donald Trump. I believe it was Yahoo News that said former reality star's son, Don Jr., has COVID. Do they not realize he is the 45th sitting president of the United States? Shameful, shameful, shameful of Yahoo News and these other mainstream media outlets. It's really terrible.
And, they set the standard of what's possibly going to happen over the next 4 years because they were so lenient on Biden and Kamala Harris as well that now, for example, over the weekend, I noticed that they called a lid on the rest of the press, and then Biden went to an event without informing the rest of the press. And a lot of people were saying that is not how this process is supposed to work. There's supposed to be press there as an independent verifier of what's going on. But because the media has given them a pass for so long, now they're playing from behind, being like, well, you know what? These aren't acceptable standards to be followed. So I think they're starting to kind of reap what they sowed at one point, and it's coming to the detriment of not only the press, but the American electorate more broadly. But Erin Elmore, it's always a pleasure having you on this program, breaking down not only those Trump campaign lawsuits, but what a potential Biden administration could look like. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And still